Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? I got fire trucks and stuff running around outside. Sorry about that. Anyway, thank you all for joining. Today is October 9th, and we are going to be spending the day, well, the stream here speaking about um, propaganda. Specifically, yeah, it's like right when I start streaming is when all of these sirens and crap start showing up. Sorry, that's like totally interrupting. Anyway, I hope that my apartment complex isn't burning down. Anyway, okay, so getting on with the stream. Today we're going to be talking about a PragerU um, video by a person named, and I'm probably going to you know, totally mispronounce this name, so, apologies in advance. Ayan Hirsi Ali, right? And she is a activist, women's rights activist in the Middle East, and has spoken out against things like, forced marriages and honor killings and stuff like that. And generally seems to be a pretty good person all around. And but she made this pretty I think, misguided video that PragerU has put up. And actually, it was a video taken from an opinion piece that she wrote, which, yeah, kind of is a little misguided. So I want to basically answer that, but then we'll use that as sort of a springboard to talk about um, the predilection among right wingers in order to try to link leftist American politics into fundamentalist Islam, which is bullshit and has been something that they've been trying to do for literally decades at this point. Um, Lewis the Hedgehog, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining. Biospark, thank you for joining too. Good morning. Have not you're a new name. I haven't seen you here before, so thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Um, but before we start all of that stuff, we're going to start a new piece here, right? Let me show you what we finished last time. This here's my DeviantArt site, and this is the piece that we just finished last week. This is our Oompa Loompas invading the Smurf village. And so this is the thing we worked on for like the last like 6 streams. And I thought it was pretty good. I thought it turned out pretty well, you know. I added some stuff back here. You can see just some vague suggestions of more trees and stuff in the background here since last time. But that's pretty much it. I haven't really added anything else. And, I mean, there's probably more I could do to it. I could probably put highlights or, beams of sunlight going through the trees and stuff like that. But, yeah, it kind of hits a point where you just got to stop. And, because there is such a thing as overworking an illustration until it hit, and then eventually it gets like too overworked and then starts looking crappy. And it's like, I think this is like sort of a healthy medium. So I don't know, maybe I'll make prints of this and, sell them or something. But if you guys want to, feel free. You can just go to directly to the site here and just download it if you want a copy of it. I'll put that in the chat. That's where that's at. Anyway, so we're gonna start something new. This is since it's Halloween, I figured we'd do like a Pumpkin King kind of thing. So here's something that I drew about 2 years ago at this point. Um, sort of a, yeah, I guess pumpkin wizard king thing, jack-o'-lantern sort of thing. The thing about it is that like probably I'd say 90% of all of the um, 90% of all of the artwork I do is like, sorry about that. Um, no one ever really sees. Oh, wait a minute, cancel. So first thing you got to do when you scan something in, you notice how it's all weird and like light like that. First thing you usually want to do is go up to adjustments and then go to levels And if you adjust the levels, it makes all of the line work a little darker, gets rid of some of the artifacts around the edges, stuff like that. Second thing you usually want to do, what I usually do, is go up here and I'll do a desaturate that way. So you notice how it was slightly yellowish, gets rid of all of that weird yellow. And then let's go back up to adjustments. And then actually, here's another thing. So you see how there's little bits of gray like that? You can select that color and then you can go up to adjustments and you can do replace color. And all you got to do is just move it. And you see how over here it's starting to disappear like that. Just it'll just remove all of that shade throughout the entire thing. So there's three little hints there for you guys if you're ever illustrating something in Photoshop yourself like that. And why is my pen not working? What the hell's going on? Hang on a second. There it goes. Okay. Cancel that. Wait, it's still acting funny. Come on, the shit was working last night. Don't do this to me. Wait, why is it not working? Sorry, hang on a second, guys. Technical difficulties. See, I had everything set up perfectly, ready to go, the night before, and then once I start doing it, there it goes. Okay. I was wondering, it's like, why the hell wasn't you know, why wasn't my Wacom tablet working? What the fuck? That's really pissed off. Anyway, so what are we talking about today, right? Well, I have this PragerU video that I saw, and this is by a person, like I mentioned before. Her name is Ayaan Hirsi Ali, right? Now, this is a person that is not your typical sort of fanatical right-wing, neocon pseudo-fascist that you would usually see in a PragerU video, right? This woman actually seems to do, good work for the most part. Um, she is an advocate against, basically for women's rights in the Middle East, right? She's spoken out against, like I said before, things like, uh, you know, arranged marriages, child marriages, right? Honor killings, acid attacks, stuff like that. She's an advocate to reduce those things, because, right, those things are freaking horrible, right? And and how come that didn't? There we go. Okay. I accidentally increased the size of my little wand there. Anyway, and she has, however, kind of in recent years, kind of gotten in bed with the American right wing, and it's because she's sort of become another sort of anti SJW warrior, right? And it comes down to an instance in 2016 where some protesters basically kicked her out of a university. Like she was supposed to get an honorary degree at this university, and they some protesters basically accused her of hate speech, and then the university withdrew their invitation. Blah blah blah. We'll get into more of that in a little bit. And so this advocate for women's rights has thrown in with the American right wing, who, um, for all practical, purposes, really don't actually give a shit about women's rights, at all in the slightest. And it kind of goes to show that this idea there's a fallacy, the enemy of my enemy fallacy, right? The idea that, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? That's like this old proverb that supposedly has been attributed to everybody under the sun, whether it's Egyptian or Native American or whatever, right? Nobody really knows where that proverb came from, but that proverb is actually a fallacy, because in real life, the enemy of your enemy is not your friend. They are still your enemy. And that is what I think is going on here. She's kind of jumped and gotten in bed with the MAGA people, with the libertarians and, the far right people and stuff like that, because she got canceled once and is now equating, you know, um, cancel culture that you would see in the, typical American, like, leftist politics. She's equating that with stuff that would happen, like, in radical Islam. You know what I mean? Which is complete and total 100% grade A baloney of the highest order. That's total bullshit, you know? And the left in the United States has really nothing to do with radical Islam at all, in the slightest. They're not even close to being the same. The thing about that is that this has been something that the right wing in this country has been trying to, this is a picture that they've been trying to paint of, leftist politics in the United States for decades at this point. You know, pretty much ever since 9/11, the right wing in this country has been trying to equate, the left, progressives, and especially Democrats with, fundamentalist Islamic terrorism, right? They've been trying to make those things, at least they've been trying to associate those things, at least in the eyes of their voters, so that whenever you would think Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or something like that, then you would think terrorism, right? And to a large extent, they've kind of succeeded. So, a little bit about this one before we actually hit play on the video here. I do want to speak a little bit about who this woman is, because she's actually doesn't really seem to be a bad person. As I'm reading about her, trying to get a little bit of research for this video. Before we get into the video, let me just sort of set this back to let's see. I have my main view, right? But we'll start playing the video, and we'll respond to it in a minute. But yeah, so Ayaan Hirsi Ali, like, who exactly is she, right? And if you want to actually read this, so if you don't want to, like, suffer through this video, um, here's a link to a Wall Street Journal opinion piece where she actually wrote all of everything out, right? So I think this opinion piece came first, and then Prager, you made a video out of it. I think that's how it is, right? But anyway, if you just want to read it and you don't want to, like, actually listen to the stream or whatever, and you don't want to, because you don't want to support PragerU or whatnot, you can just, like, read it from that link there. Anyway, so yeah, this woman, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, right? She is a research fellow at the Hoover Institute, right? At Stanford University. Now, when you say that, that makes it sound like she's a professor there or something, right? And you'll notice this, that they'll say this, like, immediately when we start the video, that's what'll pop up right underneath, like, research fellow at the, Hoover Institute, right? The Hoover Institute, it is not part of Stanford University. They have their own independent, board or whatnot, right? They are just on the campus of Stanford University. And what the Hoover institution is it's a think tank, basically a conservative think tank, right? Um, they don't seem to be as insane, as, say, like the Cato Institute or something like that. You know what I mean? But they still advocate for conservative policies and, economic policies and shit like that. So they're a very influential think tank, right? And it was set up originally by Herbert Hoover before he became president way back in the day, and as a just a library, so it had books on World War One, and the full name of it is the Hoover Institute for War, Revolution, and Peace is the full name of it. So that was mainly their main policy to begin with. Was, God, this looks like crap right here. Excuse me, folks, as I do a very, very bad job trying to thin this line. I'm gonna have to, like, redraw this. This looks like shit. Anyway, um, and so let's see. Right. So she's basically a research fellow there. which I'm not exactly even sure what a research fellow is. As far as I can tell, it's someone that studies there. So I'm not sure if that just means that she's like, does she actually have a job there? It wasn't really clear when I looked up what actually being a research fellow entails. It's like, do they just pay you to, as far as I can tell, they just kind of pay her to write for them. You know what I mean? Like what the fuck are you actually researching? Like, especially when it comes to a think tank, you're not actually researching anything. It's more of like they kind of just sit around and think up policy positions, and then, you know, lobbyists and shit like cite their papers and stuff in order to try to get politicians to enact the shit they think up. That's essentially what a conservative think tank actually does. Like, they don't actually see, that's the thing about think tanks. They don't actually propose solutions or like, lobby. They don't actually do anything like that. They're basically inventions to come up with the intellectual justifications for policies, right? And it's not, think tanks are not a strictly conservative thing either. There are liberal think tanks, there are progressive think tanks, so it's not like they're doing anything nefarious, you know. But for example, the Cato Institute is a think tank, and they'll sit around and they'll write papers and shit like that trying to justify, you know, um, trying to justify like libertarian policies and cutting back taxes and shit like that. You know what I mean? And then basically fucking Ron Paul will say, see, the Cato Institute says, according to this study, that, if we cut all the taxes for rich people, the economy will increase 5,000%, when in real life it's like bullshit. Like, that's basically what they do. So same kind of deal, coming up with essentially justifications for conservative policies that never really work out the way that they predict they will. Um, anyway, so yeah, she was, she's actually seems to be a pretty good person though. She started a foundation called the AHA Foundation to fight for women's rights in the Middle East. Things against like honor killings and forced marriages, and child marriages is a big thing with her too. And then also like um, just women's rights in general. A lot of places in the Middle East are not very very friendly places to be a woman. You can't run a business in most countries. Some countries like Iran or Afghanistan or whatever, you like can't even be outside by yourself without like a male escort. Like, let alone things like having to wear burqa, stuff like that. And then other places in many Middle Eastern countries, especially those ones that have Sharia law, like, if you get raped, for example, you know, um, it's very, very hard to get justice, right? You basically have to have male witnesses. Female witnesses aren't good enough. They have to be male witnesses. And and some places you can even like if someone gets raped and the rapist like proposes marriage, then the rape victim has to like accept. And not only does the rapist get away with not being punished, but now he's like basically like forced his victim to marry them. Like shit like that happens all the time because it's like traditional societies. That's what happens in these sort of traditional societies, right? There you go. You know what? I think we don't really need to fix the line work that much. It's just more of like, because this is what it'll look like when you zoom out. See, that's the thing. It's like when you zoom way in, you're like, God, that looks like shit. It's so horrible. But this is what it's going to actually look like when you see it on screen. So it's not really necessary to go in and remove every little artifact. That's another lesson that I always have to keep reminding myself because we're all perfectionists, right? When you're an artist and you'll just sit there for, I don't know about you, but I'll just sit here for like 3 hours just sitting there and erasing every little tiny thing that, you know, every little scanning artifact and shit like that where it's like totally not necessary. Anyway, um, let's see. So here is from the Wikipedia article on the AHA Foundation, right? Which actually seems to be a pretty good thing. Here's a little snippet that I thought, I'd like to read for you guys. Okay. According to Wikipedia for AHA Foundation, at the institutional level, existing U.S. child welfare. This is about, child welfare in the United States and what they advocate for, right? Existing U.S. child welfare, domestic violence, and human trafficking institutions are currently not equipped to protect forced marriage victims or to address their unique needs. Let me put the link to this also in case you guys want to read it yourselves. Let me just copy that. Go down into the stream. Here's the link from what I'm reading from the basically the in fact, what? I'll just open it so that way you guys can see it. Here's the Wikipedia page on the AHA Foundation, and then I'm reading this right in the United States. Go away. At the institutional level, right? This is what I'm reading right here. Domestic violence and human trafficking institutions are currently not equipped to protect forced marriage victims or to address their unique needs. Most domestic violence shelters will not accommodate minors, and few service providers are trained or funded to address the issue of forced marriage. In several states, child welfare officials declared that the intended child brides were not at risk or imminent harm and sent them home, where girls' parents promptly severed all contact with advocates and sent the girls to the altar. These resources should be strengthened at the local level and in dialogue with agencies at the state and federal level dealing with domestic violence issues. So yeah, this is a statement by them about what we need to do in the United States in order to protect women, right, who are in danger of, for example, being forced to get married when they're 9 years old, shit like that. And sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Sounds like, hey, this is somebody that I can get behind, right? So what the fuck is she making videos for PragerView about? Why is she making videos for fucking PragerView? Because, frankly, Prager University and the people that watch Prager University and the people who fund Prager University don't really give a shit about women's rights at all in the slightest. They don't give a fuck about any of this, especially when it comes to women's rights in the Middle East. They don't care about that. They want to blow up the fucking Middle East. They don't give a shit, So why is this woman making these videos here? I mean, just talking about things like domestic violence institutions, human trafficking institutions. Conservatives don't care about those things in the United States at all. They provide zero funding. They're always constantly cutting the funding for things like women's shelters, stuff like that, and they're always doing things like weakening the laws when it comes to domestic violence as well. They really honestly don't give a fuck. So this is kind of an example of, you know, um, basically, I don't know, I really think this is like PragerU seeing this woman who you know, basically taking advantage of the fact that she was canceled and trying to get her on their side. And an example of tokenism, right? So that way, when somebody tries to claim that they're not, that they're anti-feminist or something, they can be like, oh, well, look, we have this woman here who's advocating for, this, and this, right? So we care about women's rights, when in real life, they don't actually give a fuck about women's rights at all, right? In real life, it's just, they're just hosting her video so that way they can use her as a shield as they go around and promote policies that would turn the United States into a real life version of the fucking Handmaid's Tale. Right? That's seriously what's going on. So, anyway, yeah, but the reason why that it looks like she has thrown in her hat in the ring with the PragerUs and the Tucker Carlsons and whatnot of the political right is because of an incident that happened in hang on, I got it right here. It was an incident that happened where the fuck? Oh, dude, I just totally lost my place. Are you fucking serious? God damn it. I was so organized today. I was seriously organized today, and then now I'm just all over the fucking place here. It was at fuck. Where is it? Okay, Bandell's University. That's where it was. Okay, found my place again. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, so in 2014, she was basically invited to a ceremony where she was going to be given an honorary, um, degree from Brandis University, right? And some protesters showed up. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, kind of led it, and then also some students and faculty and some student groups and things kind of protested her. Accused her of engaging in hate speech, right? Now, in her defense, I wasn't able to actually find any examples of this hate speech that they're talking about. I wasn't able to find them myself, but you know, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't also able to read through every single thing she's ever said or published. So, it could be something, right? There could be some actual substance to this, right? But generally, whenever somebody speaks out against a religion, you know, they get accused of hate speech. And this is what we kind of saw. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, like when the new atheist movement sort of sprang up, and you had people like fucking PZ Myers and shit, right? And all those guys, and making videos and having speeches and things, and Aaron Ra, those kinds of people. And they're constantly being like flagged for hate speech, saying that they're bigots, they're like anti-Christian bigots, blah blah blah, shit like that. That's kind of what's going to happen. It's the same way that Scientology, for example, will harass people who make videos or like, or speak out against the Church of Scientology. You know what I mean? They're going to accuse them of hate speech. They're going to say you know, that they're bigots, that they're discriminating, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really, that's kind of to be expected. So yeah, a bunch of Islamic student groups, and you know and CARE is sort of like a lobbyist group for Islamic like rights, essentially. They're like an anti-hate organization, where like they collect statistics on hate crimes against Muslims and stuff in the United States, and you know and they like advocate to like pass stricter laws, that kind of thing, right? It makes logical sense that groups like this would stand against somebody who is, you know, um, speaking out against Islamic, religion, right? Because let's not forget, all of this stuff is not. It's not like, this woman is wrong when it comes to these things. Like things like, I mean, honor killings and acid attacks and shit like that. That these are problems in the Middle East. These things do happen. Um, it's not like she's making these things up, right? And the thing about it is that it's like, well, you don't really hear much of the American left talking about this kind of thing very much anyway, because really Islam is such there's not a lot of Islamic people in the United States. It's an extremely small minority. Goddamn sirens. Sorry. It's a very small minority here. There's only like, you know, less than 2% of the people in the United States are Muslims. So it's not a problem in the United States. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why you don't really see like, the American left really speaking out against these kind of things. Not that much, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and start, because I think that's enough background for now. Let's go ahead and start the actual video. And of course, you guys, I will of course read all of your comments at the end. So please comment away. Dynacat, thank you for joining. Appreciate it, man. So anyway, here is the video, and I really do want to apologize for subjecting you all to Prager University, but I think that this is kind of important. So let's just make this full screen. There we go. Okay, and we won't go through the entire thing, right? But there are some things I do want to respond to this in this particular video here. Okay, here we go.
There were many American heroes on 9/11, but the greatest were the passengers and crew of Flight 93. Not only did they avert what Al Qaeda planned, a direct hit on the White House, but they also embodied Patrick Henry's credo: give me liberty or give me death. Do those words still have a meaning in America today? For
So, kind of right off the bat, I just kind of want to point out that what she just did right there is a very sort of common, propaganda tool, right? She cited, someone who, I'm pretty sure everybody would agree Patrick Henry was a patriot. He's one of the founding fathers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what that does when you start off like that, it sort of instills in the listener this, the idea that, hey, I'm talking about this patriot because I'm a patriot too. Right. Something we got to remember is that, the conservative right wing in this country are not patriotic. They are not at all, especially since, all of the shit that happened last January and how they're continuously making excuses for, violence committed by the right wing, stuff like that, the attempted fucking insurrection, they tried to overthrow a goddamn election, that kind of thing. Anybody that supports that kind of stuff is not a patriot. Right. You're kind of the opposite of a patriot at that point when you're like advocating for violence, when you're, uh, basically trying to like take over the fucking country because your guy lost. You're not a patriot. You're a fucking traitor. Right. So but this is a very common thing. So now it's like everybody watching this at home is like, oh well, they just put this idea in your head of patriotism, and then you start envisioning bald eagles and like the fucking Star Spangled Banner and Mom and Apple Pie and shit, and it makes it sort of easy to like it's just sort of like it's a backhand way of complimenting the viewer. You know what I mean? Like, you're a patriot because you're watching this kind of thing. These people were patriots. That's what real patriots are. Real patriots are people that fight and kill for the United, for your country, and not these pink-haired SJWs or whatever. It's kind of a kind of a rhetorical tool, and it's always a good idea to kind of, identify when you're being manipulated like that through language, right? Anyway, moving on.
2 decades, I've spoken out against those strands of Islam that gave rise to Al Qaeda. In this fight for freedom, I have faced many death threats. Yet, I have always consoled myself that in the US, freedom of conscience and expression were paramount values. It was partly for this reason that I moved here and became a citizen in 2013. It never occurred to me that free speech would come under threat in my newly adopted country. In 2014,
There we go. Free speech is under threat. So that's basically going to be the crux here of this woman's argument. You know, she's going to start talking about cancel culture, right? And comparing that to free speech, which is not only a bad argument, but also not accurate. Because cancel culture does not do anything to limit your freedom of speech, right? This is kind of a misconception that a lot of people have, and not just on the right wing, but it does seem to be something that the right wingers don't really seem to understand. They can't really get it through their heads, right? That your freedom of speech is something that the government guarantees you, right? It's something that is in the Constitution that says this Congress shall make no law. Well, what does that mean? It means Congress, the government, shall make no law infringing on your freedom of speech. It doesn't mean everybody else has to sit around and let you get away with consequence-free speech. Right. Those are different things. Okay. It's the government is not allowed to throw you in jail for saying or believing something. That doesn't mean that other people out there in the world, in the country, are also not allowed to react negatively to something you say. So if you get caught on a video running around saying extremely racist things, for example, and that video goes viral on the internet and you get fired from your job because of that, that's not the government. That's the government didn't get you fired from your job. Your government didn't do anything. Those are the actions of other people expressing their free speech, you know. And that's kind of what I think that this woman here, I keep forgetting her fucking name. I can't pronounce her name. Ayan Hirsi Ali. That's kind of what she is, her mistake here, right? Her mistake is that fucking, you know, kind of with like all the other right wingers thinking that, hey, I should be allowed to say whatever I want and you shouldn't be able to stop me. And that's like, no, dude, that's not true, right? I can't. The thing is that it's not possible for me or anybody else to stop her from saying whatever she wants, right? Um, we can't throw her in jail for saying things. We can't get her arrested, right? We can't do anything like that to prevent her at all. You know, we can choose to not platform her on our platforms. If I, for example, owned Twitter, it's perfectly within my rights to say, hey, I don't want you to be on Twitter because I don't like you. And I don't need a reason. That's the thing. For whatever reason at all, I don't like the way you look. You know, I don't like your hairstyle, right? I don't like the fact that you eat corn with out without using one of those little corn sticker things to put in the corn on the cob. Whatever. There's really no reason. It doesn't matter at all. I don't like the fact that you wear blue socks. It could be anything. You know, and I can, anything as long as it's not a protected class, like your race or your religion. Those are the only things that, we've decided as a society should be protected. And I'm not allowed to kick you off because you're black, for example, or because you're Jewish or something, or, or something like that, or because you're, Islamic. I'm not allowed to kick you off for those reasons. But, if you come on my website and you start spreading around a bunch of like hateful, bullshit that's like riling people up and is going to get people killed, I'm allowed to kick you off all I want because fuck you. That's how freedom of speech actually works. You know what I mean? Anyway, moving on here.
I was invited to receive an honorary degree at Brandeis University and then ungraciously disinvited. Even when I first encountered what has come to be known as cancel culture, I didn't fret too much. I was inclined to dismiss the alliance of campus leftists and Islamists as a lunatic fringe. They are not
Oh, fuck you! Sorry about that. Fucking commercials. Skip ads. Get out of here.
fringe anymore. Many on the left,
All right.
academia, the media,
All right.
they are not the fringe anymore.
Oh no. The big scary leftists. The big scary leftists are taking over the country. No. No, they're gonna make you all say they and them. They're gonna force you to get gay married. They're gonna force all your kids to use transgender bathrooms. It's just, I don't know, kind of fucking ridiculous, kind of stupid as hell. But anyway, you ever notice how conservatives just live in fear of fucking everything? Like they are not the fringe anymore. Like, I don't know. Moving on, moving on.
Many on the left, academia, the media, and now even the corporate world have inculcated in a generation of students an ideology that has much more in common with the intolerant doctrines of a religious cult than with the secular political thought I studied at Holland's Leiden University.
Okay, so there you go. Comparing the woke American left, comparing, progressives and Democrats to a religious cult. That is, of course, 100% grade A bullshit, you know? Um, those people have nothing to do at all with fundamentalist Islam at all in the slightest. The SJWs, the progressive left, the people who advocate for trans rights or ask you to use non-gender specific pronouns. The people that want trans people to be able to use the frickin' bathroom that they feel like using, or think that gay people should be allowed to get married or adopt children, stuff like that. Those people have absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with Islam or, in fact, a religious cult, because these beliefs are not religious beliefs. A religious belief is basically something an article that you have on faith, something that can't be proven to be true, right? That is something that you just believe because there's no actual scientific belief or whatever. You basically just believe it because you want to feel good. That's essentially what a religious belief is. It's some kind of tradition passed down through your family or whatnot, right? And you know that it doesn't stand up to actual any kind of scientific rigor, so you just fucking believe it anyway because you've always believed it, etc., 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 right? These things are not the same fucking thing. It's like, these are what we're talking about here. Like, these are like people's rights, people's lives. The fact that you're allowed to do certain things and you're not allowed to do other things in this country. Gay people have trouble adopting children, for example, even to this day. Even though it's not illegal, as far as I know, it's not illegal in any state for a gay person to adopt a child, but try doing it. If you're gay, try adopting a child. Watch what fucking happens. You're not going to get one. You know what I mean? Um, and it won't be because of any specific reason that they'll tell you, you know. Or the same thing, like if you're a trans person and you want to like join the military, you weren't allowed to even do that until very recently, right? Within the last, I mean, when was it? Like, you know, God, Obama administration, and then Trump fucking becomes president, and he like kicks all the trans people out of the military, and it's like he bans trans people from the military again. So shit goes back and forth. This is like, why? Why is that? How come someone who's trans shouldn't be allowed to serve their country? How come like people who are of the same, sex aren't shouldn't be allowed to get married, for example? What's the fucking like, how come someone shouldn't be able to ask you to address them in a certain way using a certain pronoun? What's the problem? You know, hey, I like to be addressed this way, right? It's not a law. It's not like you fucking have to like it, if you don't want to use they or them or whatever. It's not like you get thrown in fucking prison for it. It's just like a nice thing to do for somebody. Like, what's the big fucking deal? What do you have to be afraid of? How is that like the same thing as, throwing acid in a woman's face if she won't marry you, right? Or like, murder, setting a woman on fire if she like dares to have sex outside of marriage or something like that, or forcing a woman to fucking marry you if you rape her, right? How are these things the same fucking thing? Because what? Because somebody kicked you out of a university once? That's why? It's bullshit, right? Such a total fucking bullshit. You know, cancel culture is essentially public shaming, and you got to remember this woman here, her job is to advocate against, violence against women. That's what she does. That's her job. She advocates, for protecting actual real women and their lives and shit. And she does good work, you know. But it's not the same thing as cancel culture. Cancel culture is not throwing acid in someone's face, not setting someone on fire, not fucking like blowing them away and shit, shotgun to the face and stuff because they dishonored your fucking family or something. Cancel culture is basically public shaming. And that's all it really has been. And, yeah, admittedly, it can get out of hand. Sometimes cancel culture gets out of hand. Like, me personally, I would never, I don't believe it's right, for example, to completely ruin someone's life because, for example, they said something rude or even racist. I don't even think that's I don't even think that's right, Like, for example, yesterday, just I was out walking my dogs, right? Here's a little side story here, right? Out walking my dogs, and here comes another guy with his girlfriend, right? This is like late at night. I walk my dogs late at night so that they don't pee in the house overnight, right? Kind of empty the tank, And here comes a guy with his girlfriend, and he's walking, and I think he's drinking a beer. And so he's got a bigger dog than me. He had like a some kind of boxer or something. So I kind of pull over to the side and pull my dogs up onto the little grassy area and just sort of chill and let him walk by, so that he can walk by. And I'm like, being polite is what I'm doing. This dude and his girlfriend stop and they start talking. And they're maybe about, 15 feet away or something, and they're just chilling and they're talking, and I'm standing on the hill waiting for him to walk by, and he's not walking by. And I'm like, all right, well, I can tell, because my dogs are, small, and I don't want your fucking big dog to like attack and eat my small dogs. Like, that's why I'm waiting here. And I know the fucking dude sees me, so I give him a few minutes, and then I sort of wave to him. And then, he waves back, and I'm like, hey, dude, you walking this way? And he goes, no, I'm going this other way. I'm like, oh, well, you mind moving so my dogs don't, get attacked by your dog. And the guy was incredibly fucking rude to me after that and said some shit like, I'm not going to let you dictate how I walk my dog. Like, he just really, and I think what it was, I think the guy was drunk, you know. I think this dude was drunk and he was with his girlfriend, and I think he was trying to act tough in order to like impress this girl. Right. And it was just sort of like 0 to 100 right off the bat. And I was like, whoa, fucking goddamn, buddy, just mind your fucking business. Like, all right, then don't walk. Then I'll go around you. But, and here's the thing is that he just would have let me sit there for like ever. And he was being rude on purpose to be an asshole because he wanted to like impress his girlfriend or some shit. That's exactly what it was. So I'm just like, whatever, suck my dick. Okay, I'll walk. And then the guy started getting angry and yelling, and I just walked away and flipped him off. Right. And it's like, there you go. Well, I could have taken video of this person. I could have got that all on video. I had my phone with me. I had it out actually. I was like listening to music and shit. I could have got video of that, of him being a rude piece of shit and like and he basically threatened to beat me up too. That was the thing. It's like, yeah, I'll smack the shit out of you. I'm like, whatever. Drunk people can't fight. But anyway, you know, I could have took this video of this guy being a Karen, right, and put it on the internet and publicly shamed him, and then maybe his, fucking carpet cleaning place that he works at or wherever the fuck he works would like, see that and be like, oh, you're fired. We don't want people who are rude like this, who are like basically drunk in public to work for our fucking like, our company. I could have done all of that shit to him. And I don't really think it's, I think that's me just, as a kind of a side note. I think that's a little too far. It's like, okay, well, the guy was drunk and he's a dick, but, being rude to somebody on the street shouldn't mean that you instantly become a social pariah. It's like, I don't want the guy to end up fucking homeless because he was a dick to me once, like, whatever. Right. But here's the thing about that is that that's not, even when that does happen, right? For example, let's say Richard Spencer or something, somebody like they publicly shame someone for being a fucking Nazi, that kind of thing. And they do lose their jobs and they do like, get kicked off of all their platforms and stuff like that. And people don't want to associate with them. When that shit does happen, you know, that's people expressing their freedom of fucking like, speech. That's people like doing their own thing. And it's got really, it's not even close to like, enacting violence on somebody, to like beating the crap out of them or like, murdering them, right? It's not even in the same fucking ballpark. If the only thing that happened to women in the Middle East was that they were like canceled when they fucking like, went against like the edicts of like conservative Islam. If that was the only thing that happened, this woman wouldn't have a job, right? Seriously, her foundation wouldn't exist. She wouldn't, because she'd have nothing to advocate against, right? Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she would be out of a fucking job if cancel culture was used in the Middle East instead of honor killings, right? Fuck, why does that keep doing that? All right, there's something wrong with my. Something is definitely wrong here. This is kind of shit. Sorry, folks. I'm gonna have to like reset something here because it's not. It's, hopefully, I hope that noise is not coming off on the stream there. That's bad. All right, see, that seems to be working, but why is it when I color this shit in, there's like a delay? That's what it is. So when I go here and then I try to see how it's doing that, it shouldn't be doing that. Fuck. Anyway, okay, well, let's just not work on the eyes. Let's just go back to coloring. So yeah, kind of total fucking 100% complete bullshit. Let's see. Anyway, let's move on with the video here because it's already like shit 11:50 and we're like we're only a minute and 30 seconds in. Sorry guys. I have a tendency to just go off on like rambling fucking side tangents. I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it together. Okay.
In the debates after 9/11, many people sought materialist explanations for the attacks. The jihadis lacked educational and employment opportunities. They were angry at American foreign policy in the Middle East, and so on. I argued that none of these could explain the motivations of the plotters and hijackers, all of whom, in any case, came from middle class and upper class homes. Their goal was religious and political, to denounce Arab governments as corrupt and their Western allies as infidels, and ultimately to overthrow the existing order in the Middle East and establish a caliphate.
See that? See what she just said there? It wasn't a material reason, right? It wasn't because the people there are poor or disadvantaged that they blew up the World Trade Center, right? It's because of what? Religious reasons. They want to establish a caliphate. They want, Sharia law and all that stuff. They want to impose their religion on other people, which, to some extent that's true, right? But to say that there weren't actual other reasons besides that is untrue and naive, actually, because a large number of the people that do fight, for example, for the Taliban or for ISIS or something like that, are on the extreme end of the poverty scale. In places like Afghanistan in particular, right? Maybe not Syria before all the shit hit the fan there, but definitely in Syria now. These are not people that are living comfortable middle class lifestyles, like she said. Now, granted, the 9/11 hijackers, that's a kind of a different story because those people mostly were, first off, they were Saudis. They were Saudis and they were a little more well off than your average, like, ISIS fighter. So that's true stuff. But to say that, like their goal, like she says, their goal was religious and political. It was like mainly a religious thing. They want to establish a caliphate. That completely ignores the decades long history of the United States intervention in this region, right? Going back like, 50, 60 years at this point, right? I mean, it's ignoring like, for example, when in Iran, where the U.S. supported the Shah of Iran for decades as he would like go and oppress his own people and murder his opposition, stuff like that. And then after the Islamic Revolution in Iran, we then support Saddam Hussein, and when he like basically the Iran-Iraq War starts, which lasted like fucking like 15 years or some shit like that. We supported Saddam Hussein, and then we invaded Iraq when he like got uppity and like he invaded Kuwait because Kuwait was side drilling into Iraqi oil, essentially, oil fields, basically stealing their fucking oil. So he invades Kuwait, so then we invade Iraq, and we basically set Saddam to be up as like a villain there, right? Because, and let's not bullshit about it, the reason why is because, United States oil companies want the oil reserves under Iraq. Right? That's I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that one. That's definitely what fucking happened there, right? And let's also not forget, other places in the Middle East too. How we basically turned our backs on the people in Afghanistan after they, after supporting them for 10 years so that they could fight the Soviets. And then the minute the Soviets leave, we basically just fucking like tell them all to fuck off. That's kind of known in Afghanistan. They call that the Great Betrayal, in Afghanistan. The idea that we just sort of left these people to their own devices. That's it. Okay, see you guys later. Bye. Thanks for doing our dirty work for us. Right. And then we wonder, we support like the Mujahideen and all that, the basically the precursors to Al Qaeda. Those were supported by the United States. They were given training and weapons by the United States, right? And then, the thing is that there were more liberal factions back then who were fighting against the Soviets too, right? More factions, factions that were like led by people who were educated in the West and had more liberal ideals and basically wouldn't allow, you know, the state to be taken over by like religious fundamentalists who would like fucking burn entire families alive and shit for being gays and stuff like that. Like there were people there that we would right now like consider to be like, progressive. And the Reagan administration didn't support those guys. They supported the Mujahideen, right? Because there were, I don't know why. I mean, what? Because they were more anti-communist, I guess. Because they would, I guess maybe they thought they could manipulate them in the future more. I don't know. I'm sure there's probably reasons that are not purely ideological, right? So we back like fucking the most like insane, like violent, you know, religious fundamentalist wackos. And then we wonder why, like, after we leave them, once their fucking job is done, why we just bail out and don't give them any help, don't help them build their country, any shit like that, don't invest in their country, nothing like that. We wonder why suddenly, like, Afghanistan gets taken over by, fundamentalist crazies who, like, do shit like blow up 2,000-year-old Buddhist statues and everything because it's like, infidels and shit like that. And you know, throw acid in women's faces and stuff. Like, we wonder why that shit happens. Like, I mean, seriously, it's kind of fucking ridiculous, man. Let's also not forget, the how we continuously back these, Israel as they systematically fucking oppress the Palestinian people. That's a very controversial subject too, and I'm not going to get too much into that. Whatever side you're on, that's fine. But I don't think it's controversial to say that the Palestinians get the short end of the stick in that situation, right? We could do a stream on that if you want. And there's plenty of people on both sides who will say things like, "Well, the Palestinians, blah blah blah, rocket attacks, etc., whatever." Yeah, but they are kind of the definition of a oppressed people there. And it's like it's been going on for 40 years at this point, where these people are essentially stateless, living in a fucking constant, in an open air concentration camp is essentially what the West Bank and Gaza is. Where these people have no rights, and settlers and stuff are like continuously illegally stealing their land, that kind of thing. I don't like how that looks. Let's make that red instead. I was thinking maybe some sort of like evil fell energy kind of thing, but nah, let's just go for. I don't know. I don't like red either. I don't know. We will. You know what? Let's just color this in dark, and then we'll figure out later on if we want to make it glowing or something later. We'll just do that later. Anyway, so yeah, it's like this kind of ignores the history of just how the United States just systematically just fucks with people in the Middle East over and over and over, and in more regions than one, you know. And maybe if we kind of, I don't know, left these people alone and didn't have military bases in their fucking like, countries and shit like that, if we just let them to their own devices and let them do what they wanted instead of imposing our fucking will on them and dropping drone strikes on them and blowing up weddings with drone strikes, shit like that. If we did these things, maybe they, like, I don't know, wouldn't try to blow up our buildings every once in a while. You know, maybe they wouldn't be doing suicide bombings against our ships, stuff like that. Maybe they wouldn't be capturing American contractors and trying to, like, and like beheading them on video, that kind of thing. it goes both ways. It's like the way this video sounds, it sort of makes it sound like that just, the Americans were just minding their own business. And then suddenly out of nowhere, Al Qaeda decides to like, we're going to destroy America because of we hate their freedoms. That's the same shit George W. Bush tried to say. We hate their free, they hate us because of our freedoms. It's like, no, they fucking hate us because we've been, exploiting them and murdering them for fucking 40 years, and not because we have like, pornography and gay marriage, and we allow women to go to college. Not because of shit like that. It has, I don't know, kind of fucking ridiculous. I mean, that's basically like what she said. That it was unpopular to suggest that the terrorists might have unshakable immaterial convictions. That's basically what she's saying. She's saying it's part of their religion to attack us. That this is like part of a global jihad, and and it's like they have to attack us because they have to take over the earth. And that's like a lot of bullshit that we heard from the right wing too for the last 20 years, ever since 9/11. That we were dealing with this like unshakable, like sort of fun, like crazy, you know, religious fanatics who would stop and at nothing until we're all dead, and they would just blow away, like, simply for the fact that we exist. And, they're called by Islam to take over the earth and subject us all to their will, to turn us all into, like, to forcibly convert us. And if we don't convert, we're dead, you know, which is just total, it's like complete bull. And, it's bullshit, but it's like, yeah, okay, maybe there are some, when you get things like ISIS and shit like that, and they do want to start a caliphate and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, it's fear mongering is what it is, and now they're basically trying to take the same kind of fear mongering and transfer it over to progressives and wokeism, which is like kind of complete bullshit. So anyway, all right, sorry, went off on another long ass tangent. Sorry, guys. Let's move on here.
American policymakers preferred the materialist explanations as they implied actions to solve the problem: invasion, regime change, democratization. It was unpopular to suggest that the terrorists might have unshakable convictions having nothing to do with material considerations. 2 decades later, we see a similar dynamic, only this time it's within America's borders. Naive observers explain the Black Lives Matter protests and riots of 2020 in terms of blacks' material disadvantages. These are real, as are the far worse socioeconomic problems of the Arab world, but they hide the leaders' real motivations. Their ideology goes by many names: social justice, critical race theory, and intersectionality.
I see, you get that. You see that? See what you just said? Oh yeah, it's the same thing for BLM, right? And the left wing, right? It's like, yeah, it's not because people in the United States are poor, not because they're continuously getting fucked over by the system or murdered by police on a regular fucking basis. That has nothing to do with it. They really want to just destroy America because it's their ideology, because their ideology is they're all a bunch of fucking commies or whatever, and like, you know, their ideology says that they have to like, destroy America in order to force us all into, to conform to their, Marxist like utopia. And it's fear mongering. It's just like I just said, it's like fucking fear mongering, basically the same kind of fear mongering that they did in the early aughts against Islam and all that, against Al Qaeda, trying to kind of transfer that onto the SJWs and the social justice warriors and BLM. Basically saying that, hey, they're going to like try to take over the country, and it's what it's basically saying, that they're going to try to kill us without actually saying it. By comparing progressive movements to violent extremism, she's essentially using the same sort of like hitting those same fear centers in the brain that would make like someone afraid of Al Qaeda. So they think like, yeah, BLM will murder you now, right? That's exactly what she's doing. And it's social justice, critical race theory, and intersectionality. For there's been plenty of videos out there that talk about how the right wing doesn't really know what these three things mean, especially when it comes to critical race theory. They really don't have any idea what critical race theory actually is. It's something that is not actually taught in schools. Not really. It's more of a college level kind of. Actually, it's something that you really learn in like fucking law school, really. You know. Wow, there's something wrong here, dude. There's like a delay. You see that? See how it's kind of like putting the line there like a second after I click it. Yeah, I wonder why this is doing this. This is bad. Let's fill that. Shit. Wonder why that's doing that. I wonder why. Because, I seriously, folks, I had this all set up yesterday. I was doing this last night. It ran like a charm. And now it's like, now I'm getting this, see that? I'm like, see how there's like this 2-second delay when I do stuff? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let me just save this. And here's what we're going to do, folks. Let's move this over here for a second and make this full screen. And I'm going to reset my Photoshop here and kind of, let me just save this, save that. Yes. I'm just going to turn this off and turn it back on and see if that makes it run better. But in the meantime, let's listen to the video for a little bit.
Just a few. For simplicity, I call it all wokeism. I'm not about to equate wokeism and Islamism. Islamism is a militant strain of an ancient faith. Its believers have a coherent sense of what Allah wants them to achieve on earth to earn rewards in the afterlife.
Oh, by the way, too late. You already did a quote wokeism with Islamism. That's what this entire video is equating wokeism with Islamism. So
wokeism is just another version of Marxism. It scorns religion and the idea of an afterlife. Wokeism divides society into myriad ideas.
Yeah, okay, let's try this now. Let's see if this actually makes this any better. Hopefully it will. So what did she just say? It scorns any idea of an afterlife? Wait, let's just listen to that one more time.
Religion and the idea of an afterlife. Wokeism, it scorns religion and the idea of an afterlife.
Well, yeah, because wokeism, number one, is not really a thing, but basically the politically correct beliefs of people you would call woke is not a religion. So it scorns the idea of an afterlife? No, it doesn't. It has, if anything, it actually has respect for people who believe in religions, right? That's kind of what being woke is all about. Being woke is kind of like about not being a douchebag to people for no reason and respecting their beliefs, as long as they don't try to enforce their beliefs on you, and asking them respectfully to respect your beliefs. Isn't that what it's all about? That's kind of what it seems like it's about to me. Like, hey, please respect my beliefs, I'll respect your beliefs, right? And the other thing about wokeism, and I hate using that term because I think that's just bullshit they made up, is that it's like, when you have a belief that infringes upon my rights, I'm going to call you out for it. That's the other thing. If your religion, for example, says that women are not allowed to work or have jobs or shouldn't go to school or vote, or that the only reason they exist is to just get married and have children, and if your religion says that two consenting adults, there we go. See, look, much faster. See how it's like it's doing it like immediately. I just needed to restart. Anyway, if your religion, like, infringes upon my rights like that, if it says that I'm not allowed to do something because of my race, if I'm not allowed to, like, say, marry someone who's a different race than me, or if I'm not allowed to you know, if I'm not allowed to fucking like say for example, I don't know, marry someone who's the same gender or sex as me, or something like that, then your religion can fuck off. And that's really kind of the opposite of, a religion, right? And seriously, like the idea of an afterlife, like, how does that even come into like progressive politics? You know, like scorning the, I guess what because like it's filled with atheists, is that what it is? So okay, that's kind of, I think that part right there where she says it scorns religion and the idea of an afterlife, that kind of sounds like red meat that she's throwing to her the base of PragerU. PragerU is basically like, you know, conservative evangelical Christians and shit watch this bullshit. Force their children to watch it, stuff like that. I think that's what that part is she's throwing a bone to them, saying, yeah, and they're filled with atheists too. Even though that's kind of the exact same shit that she does when it comes to Islam, if you think about it. She's speaking out against the toxic parts of Islamic fundamentalism, is she not? So, you know, aren't the same people saying aren't the people who believe in Islam saying the same shit about her? It's funny how it's like, you can dish it out, but you sure can't fucking take it. Kind of like with all conservatives, right? Anyway, let's move on.
Wokeism divides society into myriad identities, whereas Islamist division is simpler: believers and unbelievers. There are many other differences, but consider the resemblances. The adherents of each pursue ideological purity, certain of their own rectitude. Neither Islamists nor
Yeah, certain of their own rectitude. She just described right there every political movement ever, including conservatives. So the adherents of which, right, let's just look at that one more time, right? The adherents of each pursue ideological purity, certain of their own rectitude, right? That's kind of what everybody does. Everyone who believes in a religion does that. Everyone who believes in a, political ideology does that. Prager University does that. That's not like, you know, like the whole point of being a in of holding beliefs that you hold to be like, especially if you're a fundamentalist when you don't have any room at all for interpretation. And if you believe like this is the strictly this, like people who believe in Austrian economics, for example, perfect fucking example. Shit that can't be proven, that doesn't work in real life. Whenever you try to implement it, it bears out the exact opposite result of what you think it'll be. You know, Giving all the money to the rich people doesn't mean that people get more jobs. It just doesn't work like that. Doesn't mean the economy gets better. Cutting like, cutting all the regulations and shit doesn't mean that suddenly businesses just start acting, in the benefit of society purely just because. It just doesn't fucking work. It's essentially, two steps above a fucking religious belief. But that's what those people do. There's people that will, you know, they're basically adherents to ideological purity, you know, kind of like how the Republicans will kick someone out if they don't vote the way they want. You know what I mean? Like Liz Cheney and shit getting kicked out of the Republican Party, or censured or whatnot because she wouldn't, because she voted to impeach Trump, shit like that. It's like, oh, she's not ideologically pure enough. And yeah, the Democrats and and the progressives and shit, they do that too. There's always infighting when it comes to groups like this, you know, because that's kind of what big groups of religions, and that's what they fucking do. Exactly this. It's like you can't really use this as a complaint against fundamentalist Islam when like or the leftist politics when the right wing politics and Christians and Hindus and everybody does the exact same fucking thing. It's like you're actually like you have a problem with human nature. Moving on.
neither Islamists nor the woke will engage in debate. Both prefer
Yeah, right wingers also don't engage in debate. Just I don't know. Just as a side note, um, they are rather notorious for censoring, right? There are places, it's just something that I noticed. Like, this is just an anecdote, but if, for example, you go to like a conservative Christian website, like with a forum, or if you go to like, say, a subreddit or something, like if you go to r conservative on Reddit, they kind of have zero tolerance for dissension at all in the slightest. Like if you go to say like one of some of the more leaning subreddits, you know, they will at least wait until you get into an argument, and then if you keep trolling, they'll kick you. That'll happen. But if you go to like say R conservative, they will straight do shit like, hey, only people who have this certain kind of flair are allowed to post on this. They'll do shit like that because they limit the discussion, right? And that's what it is. They limit discussion depending on, you know, approved users because they're not really interested in other people's ideas, you know. And if you're a free speech advocate, if you are one of these deluded people that actually thinks that free speech means you're allowed to say whatever you want, anytime you want, at any time whatsoever, then conservatives and religious fundamentalists are not your friend, right? Because they've never believed in that, ever, at all. Moving on.
Indoctrination of the submissive and damnation of those who resist. The two ideologies have distinctive rituals. Islamists shout Allahu Akbar and death to America. The woke shout Black Lives Matter and I can't breathe.
Oh my God. This is just ridiculous, right? Just comparing, didn't she just say, hey, I'm not going to compare, wokeism, right? I'm not going to compare like American progressives to Islam, to fundamentalist Islamic terrorism. What the fuck is this? Is this not comparing them? Look, she has one on one side, one on the other, and has people see how it's like the propaganda here, trying to convince us that, hey, Black Lives Matter and stuff, they're a bunch of terrorists. Look, they're saying they're doing the same shit that these other terrorists do. Like, it's fear mongering. It's absolute fear mongering, and it's kind of like, that this woman would fall for this shit, because like I said, I spent the first half hour of this stream kind of talking her up a little bit, because she actually, I think, is doing good work. She's doing work that I think needs to be done, to protect women in the Middle East and shit. But it's like, but what the fuck is this? You know, Black Lives Matter is the same fucking thing as death to America. I can't breathe is the same thing as shouting like, Allahu Akbar. Like, Allahu Akbar is like what they say when they fucking suicide bomb each other. It's like basically a battle cry. It means, God, it's basically saying like it means basically God be with you, or God protect you, or like, something like that. And it's what these guys will scream that as they run in with machine guns blazing, or they set off a fucking suicide vest and shit like that. When was the last time somebody suicide bombed themselves screaming I can't breathe? You know? Seriously, this is the comparison here, and it's even the way that they have, here these people, even the way that they have them standing is indicative, of each other, right? Trying to basically put this idea in your mind that all these guys need are machine guns and they're just as bad as Al Qaeda. It's propaganda, like, oh my God. Anyway, getting a little tired of this, but let's go on for a little bit and then we're going to end it. We still have, geez, a minute and a half. All right.
Islamists pray to Mecca. The woke take the knee. Both like burning the American flag.
That's
Both
fucking
take
bullshit.
offense at every opportunity and demand not just apologies but concessions.
Yeah, okay, that one also. There is no group in this country that takes, is more of a precious little snowflake than conservative MAGA hat Christians. They are the most like pearl clutchy, kind of insane, sort of like, how dare you? Karen type people that fucking exist. They bitch and moan about every little fucking thing, right? Everything from, Mr. Potato Head not being called Mr. anymore to like, Dr. fucking Seuss novels to a guy at a football fucking a football player deciding not to stand during the fucking Pledge of Allegiance. She just said that right there. They take the knee. She's complaining about it too, right? To Gillette fucking razors. Do you remember that? The Gillette razors thing where they said, hey, men need to be better, that kind of thing. And like all the fucking like MAGA chuds and conservative dipshits lost their fucking minds over that. Every fucking year they go crazy over Starbucks, because Starbucks like has the audacity to like say happy holidays on their fucking cup. So obviously it must means that they hate Christians and there's a war on Christmas. You know, they're the most like basically like the biggest little tiny spoiled children, you know, little bitches like ever. Right? Complaining about every fucking thing ever, you know, down to, I mean, goddamn, there's just so many examples. Captain fucking Marvel, the Captain Marvel movie, right? The Masters of the Universe Revelations, people lost their minds over that shit too, right? Star Wars, for crying out loud, and how it has, it had the audacity to have a female lead and stuff, and like black people in Star Wars, and that way it's woke. There's entire YouTube channels that's all they fucking do is talk about like comics gate and gamergate bullshit, and anti-feminism or whatever, and there's entire like people that's their entire business model, how they make money. People like fucking Matt Walsh, right? Who like that's all he fucking does. All he does is just like complain about trans people. He doesn't actually like report on anything. He just goes around and talks shit about trans people. Somehow gets paid for that. You know. So yeah, don't give me this shit that they both take offense at every fucking opportunity when like Prager University is like kind of, at the forefront of the conservative crybaby machine. That's what it is. Bunch of fucking crybabies. Can't handle the fact that other people are allowed to do shit now. That, people like gay people and trans people have rights now. They can't fucking handle it. It's ridiculous. Moving on.
Islamism inveighs against blasphemy. Wokeism wants to outlaw hate speech. Islamists
Yeah, the difference is, right, progressives don't want to outlaw hate speech. Okay. They want to hold people accountable when they engage in hate speech. All right. Hate speech is already negative. But yes, it would be against the law to outlaw hate speech. It would be infringing upon your First Amendment rights. Okay. You have a right to be a douchebag in this country. You have a right to say racist things. The government cannot throw you in jail because you use the N word or something like that. Right? That you have a fun that's written in the Constitution. And nobody who's serious says that, hey, that right should be removed. Right? What, quote wokeism, what those people want is to hold people accountable when they choose to do this, when they choose to engage in hate speech, when they are rude and they're bigoted, and especially when people do stuff like that where it affects other people's lives, you know, that kind of thing. They want to hold those people accountable. They want to expose them for what they are, right? And, because racists and bigots and shit like that they should not be getting a free pass in our society. It's time people have to fight back against it, because when you don't check racism and bigotry and hatred, it results in people dying. You know, you have to push back against it, right? Because for decades, this is kind of how it's been for fucking decades. It's just been like, you know, Nazis and skinheads and fucking KKK guys and shit like that, just repeatedly getting away with murder, you know. And here's the thing: is that you hear about it in the news sometimes. Like there was the Greensboro massacre thing back in the 1978. I think that's what that was. Was that Greensboro massacre? It was like a protest against the KKK where they just showed up and just like KKK people took a bunch of guns out of their cars and murdered all the protesters. Bro, let me just look that up. It was the Greensboro Massacre. Here we go. History.com. Communists and Klansmen clash in Greensboro. Right. Here's some interesting history for you guys. If anyone's ever wants to read about how the far right wing gets away with straight up murder, right? This was you can check that out, a documentary about how in North Carolina, back in the late 70s, oh no, sorry, it was 1980s, where six Klan members basically fucking showed up at a protest against the Communist Workers' Party in North Carolina and blew them away, murdered a bunch of people, and how most of the people got off. That was the thing. They all went on trial and they were all acquitted on charges of grounds that they had fired on demonstrators in self-defense. You know, there's actual video of that happening too. Like that link that I just posted for you guys in the chat, that's not just like there's actually like, video of the KKK murdering people. These guys still fucking got off. Shit like that happened constantly for decades, lynchings and all of that, just constantly all the fucking time. And they would just always get away with it. And the reason why they do is because of American culture doesn't punish people like that because they're fucking white. They're white and they're racist. And their communities that, put them on trial are also white and racist, and that's why they would get away with it. Well, it's like, no more of that shit. That's what progressive politics is all about. No more of that shit. That is over with. We're not gonna like let people like that get away with it. You know, we're gonna stamp it out, and we're gonna do everything we fucking can to stamp it out because it's time for our society to fucking grow up and move on and start treating people equally the way that they should have, like this, for the entire history. Because the United States does not have a very good history of treating people equally. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Right? Not very much at all. So, yeah, this woman's out of her fucking mind. Anyway, we're almost through it. Let's keep going.
Use the word Islamophobia to silence critics. The woke do the same with racism. Both ideologies aim to tear down the existing system and replace it with utopias that always turn out to be hellish anarchies. Islamic State in Raqqa, the
Yeah, okay.
Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Syria.
The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone was a hellish anarchy. That's that's complete 100% grade A bullshit. The autonomous zone was actually doing pretty good, as an unpoliced zone. And the reason they had to shut it down was because Proud Boys and other assorted right-wing violent people would kept going around the edges, beating the shit out of and murdering people, right? So the reason it got shut down, right, is because there were four murders in a row, two of them on the same day, right? One of the guys was assaulted. He actually lived. He said that it was Proud Boy types that showed up, started fucking fighting him, and then they shot him, right? And and then another one like less than a block away the same fucking day. Then the next day, since there was like, the word was like, hey, we're being attacked by fucking like insane right wingers with guns. What happened is that and the at CHOP, right, the Seattle, or they call it Chaz also, right? The security, they had opened fire on a car that didn't slow down because they were afraid of insane right wingers, you know, trying to like, that were going around murdering people. And that's why. And then so basically once that shit happened, then the mayor said, okay, enough of this, and they shut it down. If there wasn't any fucking like, you know, Proud Boy assholes running around assaulting and murdering people, that shit would have lasted a little longer, and would probably still be going. Because otherwise, besides that, they were doing pretty good. They were feeding people. They were like, helping people, like helping homeless people in that area, right? Read about what those people were actually doing, man. You know, it wasn't like this lawless hellscape where people were getting raped and all this other shit. No, that's not what was fucking happening there at all. Complete and total propaganda horseshit, right? Of the highest fucking order. Anyway,
Seattle. Both are collectivist. Group identity trumps the individual.
Yeah, all religions and political parties are collectivists. That's kind of what happens when you join an organization, is you become part of the collective, right? Um, American right wing political parties and political groups are also collectivists. You know, they will deny that, of course, until they're blue in the face, but that doesn't change the fact that it's true. If you subscribe to an organization that puts down edicts and you follow those edicts, right, then that is a collectivist organization. That's by definition, that's all it takes. Right. You can't be an individual and also be part of an organization. You're either an individual or you're part of the organization. Which one is it? Okay, it's not like you're like, oh, I vote this way. I vote according to what the Republican Party says how I should vote, but I'm an individual. It's like, no, then you're fucking part of a collectivist organization. If you're doing what they fucking tell you to do, right? If you're voting the way they vote, if you're like telling you to vote, if you're fucking like, structuring your life around the principles that they tell you, then you're part of a collectivist organization. You're not a fucking individual. All right. Sorry. Same thing with any fucking church. If you're a Christian, you're living your life according to the Bible, right? And, your pastor says do this or that, and you fucking do it, guess what? You're part of a collectivist organization. Right? That's just how the fucking shit works. See, it's more propaganda here. The reason she's saying collectivist organization is to scare people. It's to scare Christians, essentially. Because when they hear the word collectivist, they instantly think commie. That's why. So it's like, oh, they're a bunch of commies that they're collectivists. They're gonna take us over and turn us all into fucking drones, like the Borg in Star Trek or some shit. Or like fucking the Cybermen in Doctor Who or whatever. They're gonna turn us into drones, and we're not gonna have a will of our own. If we try to resist, they're gonna use their collectivist fucking scary collectivist abilities to send us to Siberia or some shit. So get the fuck out of here. Such bullshit. Moving on.
Both tolerate and often glorify violence carried out by zealots.
Violence carried out by zealots. Because, protesting after the police murder someone is the exact same thing as, like, blowing up the World Trade Center. Remember, she said she wasn't comparing violent Islamic fundamentalism to the progressive left, but kind of looks like she's comparing it to me.
The grievances of Islamists and the woke aren't merely economic, and they won't be satisfied with jobs or entitlements or any other blandishments politicians are willing to offer. Their motivations are ideological, and they'll be satisfied only with power, and then they'll demand more power.
They'll demand more power, so we have to stop them. You can't deal with them. You can't negotiate. They will not be stopped. They'll keep coming forever. Like the SJWs are a bunch of Terminators and shit. That's what it sounds like to me. You know, can't be reasoned with. You can't be bargained with. They look just like us. Teeth, hair, sweat, everything. Bad breath. You can't stop him. He'll break it here and he'll tear her fucking heart out. I don't know. The first Terminator movie, I think, is still the best one. I even like the first Terminator better than the. That's what I was quoting, by the way. If you guys haven't seen the very first Terminator, it's actually better in my opinion than Terminator 2. Like we're all androids. We're unstoppable fucking androids that can't be bargained with. We can't be reasoned with. We'll just keep coming forever and ever. You can shoot us. You can't shoot us. You can't drown us. We don't need food. We don't need air. We're unstoppable. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Oh my god.
I cling to the hope that most Americans are still willing to fight and, if necessary, to die to preserve our freedoms, our rights, our customs, our history. That was the spirit of Flight 93. We
All
need
right. Enough. That's it. That's it. Can't go on anymore. She just called on everybody to fight and die against against progressives. Fight and die. So that's it. That's it. We're done with this shit. I mean, there you go. Like I like how they can't get through it without calling for fucking violence, right? She can't fucking get through this shit without, you know, what reason, what fighting, oh my God. Like, and then you wonder why guys are showing up like with bomb threats and shit at the White House, right? What you wonder why, like, 2,000 people show up at the Capitol building and try to take over a fucking election. Don't forget there were guys with bombs there, during the capital city, like, insurrection there. There were bombs at the DNC and at the RNC, right? There were people with fucking weapons there. Like, you wonder how all this shit happens. And then, like, didn't we just have like another bomb threat, like, 3 weeks ago, where a guy live streamed how he was like poor and his health insurance didn't work anymore, right? Hey, I thought she just said, I don't know, like, and then you wonder why that shit's happening, right? And when you have like people like this just getting on the air and just hammering this fear into people's minds over and over and over again, like, fucking ridiculous, absolutely fucking ridiculous, man. What does this shit even mean? Okay, so we're about, goddamn, we're already at 12:36, but I do have a little bit more of the stuff that I want to say before we move to questions and comments here. You know, what does this all fucking mean, right? Because this is not the first time, obviously, that the right wing has tried to equate, Islam with the American left. It's basically been happening ever since fucking 9/11. Ever since 9/11, they've been trying to associate, the left wing in this country with violent fundamentalist Islam, right? And it's basically just it's basically it's an association fallacy, is what it is. It's a variant on association fallacy, and then also the enemy of my enemy fallacy. The idea being that, well, it's kind of like when you there's like a bias. There's an official bias name for this that I can't remember what it is, but it's when you assume that everyone who opposes you believes in the exact same things. So you're an American, you love freedom of speech, XYZ, blah blah blah. These other people don't, so they must be in cahoots with each other. You know, um, I'm anti-war, right? The people we're fighting against in the war are violent fundamentalist Islamic terrorists. That must mean then that I'm a violent fundamentalist Islamic terrorist, and I believe in all the exact same shit that they believe, right? Which is complete bullshit. You know, you can be against one thing and then also against another thing. For example, I do not like the way that Israel treats the Palestinians. I think that is, very, very bad. I think the Palestinians are extremely oppressed and have been for 40 years, you know. But I also don't like how the Palestinians tend to use violence. Of course, I understand that they're kind of desperate, right? But I can't really support violence like that. How they, suicide bombings and shit like that. I can't support that. Sorry. I'll never speak positive of those types of tactics ever, right? You can be against both of those things. You can be against, the violent sort of terrorist groups like Hamas and shit that, fight, for the Palestinian people. And you can be against their tactics, and you can be against them and the way that, the fundamentalist Islamic, you know, things that they hold, ideas that they hold and shit. And you can also be against the state of Israel and the way that they treat civilians that live in the West Bank and Gaza. You can be against both of those things, right? You don't have to choose one side or the other. Okay, and it's a fallacy to assume that you're either this side or that side. That if you don't support all the shit that I say, then that must mean that you agree 100% with my enemies. Like, no, complete total fucking horseshit. You know, there is such a thing as being against everything and criticizing everything. And and also the fact that if, for example, if you criticize Israel, that doesn't make you anti-Semitic either, because the state of Israel is not a religion; it's a state, right? It's a country. You know, it engages in policies that people who are Jewish that live there may not agree with. So me saying that I don't like the way Israel treats, the Palestinians, that doesn't make me anti-Semitic because, you know, it has nothing to do with religion. It's got nothing to do with the way they like at all, right? So that's another tactic that you get from the right wing too. That if you ever like try to speak out against Israel, for example, they call you anti-Semitic, and they start calling you a Nazi and shit like that. This is the exact same shit the Nazis did, blah blah blah. To the if you don't support Israel, then you're just as bad as fucking Hitler. It's like, no, dude, I'm not anti-Semitic at all because it's not like I'm talking shit about their religion. And honestly, you could, if you wanted to, you could criticize Judaism as well. You could criticize, for example, the beliefs of Judaism, of like say Orthodox Judaism. That still doesn't make you anti-Semitic. You know what makes you anti-Semitic, right? Actually being anti-Semitic, saying that Jewish people are all like XYZ, thieves and liars or something, or like spouting like fucking anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, like the New World Order, Illuminati conspiracy theories, shit like that. Where you try to that's actual real anti-Semitism, not just criticizing somebody. See, you know, it also does not make you anti like Islamophobic to criticize fundamentalist Islam. That is also another fallacy. You are allowed to say, for example, I don't like the way that is fundamentalist Islam treats women either. Right. You can say that. I don't like how, culturally women are treated like one step above fucking cattle, chattel like, slaves and shit when it comes to Islam, right? And you can criticize these things and not be Islamic, Islamophobic, right? Because you're not saying that everyone that believes in it is a horrible person or a parasite or some shit like that. You're not saying those things. You're basically criticizing their beliefs, right? I'm a firm believer in the idea that um, no beliefs are above criticism, right? There's no such thing as those. It's basically that's a sacred cow fallacy, is what they call that, right? When when you treat a belief as like above criticism like that, saying like, well, you're not allowed to touch XYZ because of whatever reason, that's a sacred cow. It's like, well, no, there is ample. You should be allowed to criticize things and not be canceled or whatever, and not be accused of bigotry and hatred. It's the way in which you do it, right, which makes it valid or not. It's the way you go about it is what is how you do it. Whether you're using bigoted language or whether you're approaching it from an actual, nuanced perspective that takes things into account, right? So anyway, but yeah, so basically, getting back to the subject at hand, kind of sorry, I keep going off on these tangents, folks. This is just like this stream is just filled with fucking tangents this week. I'm kind of giving up. I'm trying to keep it organized, but yeah, getting back to the subject at hand, basically for the last 20 years, they've been trying to equate the right wing in this country has been trying to equate, um, the left with fundamentalist Islamic terrorism. You know, which was pretty bad in the beginning, during the Bush years. We had things like, for example, the axis of evil and shit like that. After Bush decides to invade Iraq because, people from Saudi Arabia blew up the World Trade Center, right? But he decides to invade Iraq because he's a moron. Because, let's not forget the reason Bush invaded Iraq is because God told him to. That's not a joke. That's actually true. Apparently, George W. Bush prayed and shit to God, and God said, go invade Iraq. So, it's really God's fault that we were there for 20 years and fucking thousands of people died. And we spent, like, $3 trillion and shit on a war that accomplished absolutely fucking nothing. Thanks, God. Appreciate that. But, it was pretty bad during those years. You had things like the Axis of Evil, where they said, like, Iran and Iraq were all together because they hate us. And then for some reason, North Korea was in there too. Right. Later on, countries like Venezuela were included in the Axis of Evil. You know, you had that kind of thing. You had lots of hate crimes against Muslims and stuff like that. You know, some of them which got really ridiculous. Like, for example, the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas went out of business because basically fucking Islamic, anti-Islamic bigotry. Excuse me. How, like, incredibly backwards do you have to be that you won't stay at a fucking theme hotel, right? That has nothing to do with anything happening in the Middle East at all, just because it's like it has a Middle East theme. Like, how fucking ridiculous do you have to be to, like, be so incredibly? I mean, that's just like the definition of fucking bigotry right there. Anyway, but it got really bad um, once Obama became president, right? Then you started getting all kinds of ridiculous shit. Like, there's a book by a guy named David Horowitz, who's a right wing conservative, talking head, sort of failed talking head guy. I think he had a talk show for a little bit, and then he used to have a show called Fight Back, if I remember, way back in the day, where he would, like, take on scams and stuff like that. And he turned into this sort of like wannabe Glenn Beck sort of dude who's just like one of the guys that never really caught on. But David Horowitz still goes around and he does speeches and shit like that. He had a book called Unholy Alliance: Radical Islam and the American Left, right? Which is like, you know, he wasn't the only one, but basically this book, the premise of this book is that, the, and this happened right around the Iraq War started, that the anti-Iraq War left was comprised of um, irrational communist radicals who were willing to get in bed with Al Qaeda because of to fund a future utopia, essentially. Basically, the exact same shit that, like, this woman, said in her fucking PragerU video. So it's not like this is a new idea. They've been kind of doing this for a long, long time, you know. Then Obama becomes president, and the shit just gets knocked into overdrive. I mean, think about it. You had a black president. He's obviously he's not American. He must be black. We had all. I mean, he's black, so he's obviously not American. Obviously, we had all of these, like, Obama conspiracy theories about his birth certificate and stuff like that, right? Um, you know, and the fact that he actually did live in a Muslim country and he went to a madrasa as a young person because those were the schools that they have in Indonesia, stuff like that. And it was like that just caused, the Islamic sort of bigotry and hate to just fly into overdrive, you know. And every fucking night you had shit like this. Here is something I want to show you guys here. Let me just kind of move this over real fast. Like, here's an article that, hang on a second. Let me just copy this and put it down in the chat for you guys. And move this over here. So here's a thing that, an article that, well, wrong one. There we go. Let me just make this a little bigger. Bill O'Reilly finally proved that Obama has secret Muslim ties. Right. And essentially this article it's like a video that Bill O'Reilly found some pictures of Barack Obama, and is, long story short, let's get rid of that. I don't want to talk about this, but I will put it down in the chat for you guys if you want to read it for yourself. Long story short, in that article, in that video, Bill O'Reilly's saying that Obama doesn't take Islamic terrorism seriously, because he has friends who are Muslims and he doesn't want to kill them. And then he shows some old photos of Obama wearing, Muslim style clothing when he was young and going to a wedding and stuff like that. And it was just like, you know, we had bullshit like that being hammered into people's minds every day for 8 years, over and over and over and over. It's no fucking wonder that now, for example, now we have these sort of like ridiculous MAGA chuds who have a worldview based on ridiculous conspiracy theories, who think that the Washington elite are led by satanic pedophiles and shit. It's like when you have this alternative media sphere feeding you bullshit like this, just constant fucking fear mongering, right? Fear mongering and bullshit over and over and over. It's no wonder that people like start going a little insane. You know, I mean, fucking Christ. Goddamn. So hang on, I lost my place again here. So anyway, yeah, that's where are we at now? 12:51. Shit, we're already at 1 o'clock. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Hoover Institution, some other people that came from there, you know, um, that kind of thing. But I think we're kind of gonna run over, so maybe I'll save all this. I actually probably have at least another hour of material we can go through, but maybe I'll save it for another stream. Long story short, folks, don't fall for this bullshit, you know, because a lot of this has sort of been revived. You know why? Because we left Afghanistan. That's why. So, for the first time in years, really, Afghanistan is in the news now. It's funny how we all just sort of forgot all about Afghanistan, huh? Like the national consciousness just sort of moved away from it. It was just sort of this forever war that was just going to keep going and going and going. I might change some of these colors. I don't really like how this is turning out, but fuck it. Kind of too late now. You know. Um, yeah, and then suddenly, once like we finally leave Afghanistan, finally all this shit is in the news. Suddenly now the right wing remembered that Islamic fundamentalism is a thing, and this drive to kind of this propaganda drive to try to equate it with like the American left is back in full swing. And it's like, just don't fall for this shit, folks. Just remember that you know the PragerUs, the Tucker Carlsons out there, the right winger people, the Republicans, they don't give a shit about women's rights. They don't care about your religious freedom, right? They don't care about any of the fucking shit that you know, that this video is about. They don't care about individuality, right? They don't care about your freedom of speech even, right? They especially do not care about your freedom of speech. The alt-right, the far right in this country, the alt-right, the Nazis, the fucking racists, the people like that, the fucking pseudo-fascists and shit like that, do not give a shit about your free speech at all, in the slightest, ever. They do not care. They'll take it away from you in a nanosecond if they could. So let's never forget that. Let's never forget who we're actually dealing with. And it's really just all fucking propaganda in order to fool people into voting for them. Right? That's what it is. And frankly, propaganda that's going to get people killed. That's really what it is. It's going to get people killed. That videos like this do nothing except radicalize people. And, you know, come on, close. Close, you piece of shit. Okay, it's slowing up on me now again. Come on, close. Fuck. Photoshop is not responding, folks. Sorry about that. My computer is shitty. But anyway, let's read some of the comments here while I'm waiting for Photoshop to like fucking, get its shit together. Okay, yeah, see, there's something definitely wrong. It's not. See, you should be able to double click and then have that close into a loop. There. All right, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna restart it again. But in the meantime, let's read some comments. So, okay, let's see. Who do we got here? Lewis the Hedgehog. I heard. All right, let me just save that and let's close this and let's start this over. Okay, thank you. Okay, Louis the Hedgehog. I heard that there are people on the left that say things like, but it's their culture and Islam treats women's bodies like a temple. Um, don't get me wrong, I gladly sue a degree from. Okay, well, maybe, you know. The thing is, like every group, people leftists in America are not, a monolith. So there's plenty of people who are going to believe things like that. It's not true, right? What they would say. There are people that are in an attempt to be culturally sensitive will overlook shit like that. You know what I mean? But I don't think you're gonna find any, like, say, people who are feminists or something like that, who will sit there and agree that this type of behavior is something that should be tolerated. You know, I don't think anybody's gonna say, for example, that honor killings are a good thing and they should be allowed, and that's just part of their culture. No one's gonna say that, right? There are limits to what even the social justice warriors will accept as part of someone's culture. You know what I mean? Because that's true. Like they'll say things like, "Well, this is the attempt to respect someone's cultural identity. You know, can only really go so far. It doesn't include violence. It doesn't include murder. You know what I mean? And frankly, the people that are speaking out against this kind of stuff don't really seem to be from the right. You know, right wingers will talk about it when it benefits them. When they can use it as a, say, when they can use it as a propaganda tool like this to say, you should support us when we bomb the Middle East because look what they do to women. That's essentially what this is all about. It's like, hey, they treat women really bad. So how many articles did you see like that? You know, when Afghanistan like fell and the Taliban took over. How many articles did you see in the news about, oh, hey, the Taliban treats women horribly, by the way. So this is why you should support us when we drop bombs on them, right? Like thousands. I mean, they were fucking. It was all over the place, right? It's like something because they don't. That's the thing is that the right wing doesn't actually give a shit about the rights of women. They only really care in so much as they can use it as a tool in order to further their military, goals in the region, steal all the fucking oil. So I don't know. It seems to me that it's like, yeah, maybe you do get like, say, misguided college students and shit saying things like that, but I don't think you're ever gonna find even those people, even like the most like rabid SJW person, the kind of people who would ask you to shave off your hair because you have a culturally appropriated hairstyle. I don't even think those people are gonna sit there and be like, hey, you know, honor killings or throwing acid in somebody's face is just part of their culture and it should be respected. That's no, you're not going to find that at all. You know. Let's see. Lucha Hedgehog. Don't get me wrong. I'd gladly sue a degree from PragerU as toilet paper. Oh, use. I'd gladly use a degree as PragerU for toilet paper. It's just that you don't fight stupidity with stupidity. Yeah, that's definitely true. Dynacat. Uh, Lewis the Hedgehog, Dynacat loves me. Many of the excuses given to hate Muslims are local culture and no part of Islam. Yeah, that's definitely true too. It's not in the Quran, for example, that you have to wear a burqa, you know, or that or that women shouldn't be allowed to drive, for example, drive cars, right? Or women shouldn't be allowed to go to school, stuff like that. Those are all things that are not in the Quran, as far as I know. I don't know. Does anybody know? Like, I didn't think that they had cars in the 7th century, so why is it that, for example, in Saudi Arabia, a woman's not allowed to drive a car? How is that supported by the holy book? That doesn't make any sense to me. How come women can't vote? Does it actually say in the Quran, women aren't allowed to vote? I don't think so. So yeah, you're actually right. A lot of those things are culturally, you know, um, instances of the culture. Like for example, we don't like Indonesia is a Muslim country, but you don't have these same types of things there. Women are not forced to wear burqas in Indonesia, for example, or they're not allowed to, they're not forced to not have jobs or go to school in Indonesia. So it's like it definitely has to do with like culture, you know, and not strictly the religion, but it's sort of the same thing here. There are people in the United States who think that women shouldn't work or shouldn't go to school or that women shouldn't vote. Even other women, fucking Ann Coulter, thinks that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. Right? There are people in the United States who would gladly codify those things into law as well. So, this is not something that's just unique to the people in the Middle East in Muslim countries, right? Let's see. Honor killings, Dynacat. Honor killings are an example that's an ancient tribal custom that does not come from Islam. That's true. Lusa Hedgehog. Well, it just goes to show how fighting stupidity with stupidity is just as much a fallacy as saying in any of my name is my friend, as Mark brought up. Oh, thank you. Dynacat. Same thing with FGM. It originates. Oh, female genital mutilation. It originates in African culture. East Africa. It's very rare in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you guys are making great points. All together. Very great points here. These are all things that are not part of Islamic religious dogma, you know. Um, and actually, these are things that the woman here is fighting against in her video. Ayan Hirsi Ali. Those are all things she's fighting against. Female genital mutilation, child marriage, honor killing, stuff like that. And it's like, these are things that we can agree on. I mean, these. I think we should kind of reach out and maybe the American left should advocate to fight against some of these things. But the way I kind of see it is that since there really is, the Islamic people in the United States are an extremely small minority. They basically make up like 1.1%, something like that. There's like 3 million people in the United States who are practicing Muslims, right? So these things are not problems in the United States at all. And it's like, I can see that's why we don't focus on them, because they don't affect people in this country, you know, on a daily basis. No one in this country is basically being forced into, well, there aren't like honor killings in the United States. And when it does happen, if it does happen, it's a crime, right? That's the other thing. When someone does get murdered for an honor killing in the United States, I'm sure it's probably happened. That person goes to jail. It's not like it is in fucking like Pakistan where they just completely let him go. So that's the difference, right? That's why we don't really have people on the left focusing on those things here. And it's like, yeah, maybe we should kind of make this a cause that we can get behind. You know, it might do something to bridge people. To start start drawing down some of the hate that we keep seeing in this country. You know what I mean? Lewis the Hedgehog. Wokeness on its own, I have no problem with. The problem is when it's weaponized to prop up the establishment, and actual progressives have pointed this out. Yeah, yeah. For example, I remember a few weeks ago there was a story about how there was a CIA commercial, like a recruitment video for the CIA, and it was like emphasizing like, look how woke we are. We have women and minorities that work for the CIA. Come join us and help, assassinate people and shit in other countries. Like seriously, like, kind of also when corporations use social justice rhetoric and stuff like, hey, everybody is we all have equal rights, so buy a Coke and shop at Progressive Auto Insurance and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just sort of like they're just giving lip service to it, like they don't actually really care or believe these things, and are not actually doing anything to help people just by like putting like minorities and women in their fucking commercials. That's absolutely true. It's basically just being marketed. Here's the thing, though, right? that is kind of a sign of success, in my opinion. When giant corporations say, hey, there are people with money that believe this shit, that kind of means that your ideas have gone mainstream. And, while in and of itself is kind of despicable, it kind of shows who's winning the culture war. You know, when Coca-Cola and Subway sandwiches and, you know, for General Motors and stuff are trying to appeal to you because of your political views, it kind of shows that you're in the mainstream and people are believing the shit that you believe. And maybe you should keep doing what you're doing because, you know, these business assholes want to get it, they want to get your money, so they're going to appeal to you, right? So that kind of shows like, hey, maybe the other side is starting to lose a little bit. So maybe that's not completely a bad thing. I don't know. Let's see. Elliot Williams. I must have said something funny. Thank you for laughing. Lewis the Hedgehog. Have you ever seen the film Charlie Wilson's War? No, never seen it. I'll have to look it up. Tiny Cat Love Me's. I've never understood why being trans would make you want to join the military. Joking. I myself have never understood that either. And it seems to me that if you were a gay person or a trans person or an LGBTQ person in any way, that the military would be the last place you would want to go. And I'm not joking. I mean, here's the thing is that I understand it's like, okay, you want to serve your country. Just because you're gay, you're trans, or whatever doesn't mean that you're not a patriot. I totally understand that. And, there are benefits you get from the military, GI Bill, and you get fucking like the VA hospitals and stuff like that. And it's generally a good deal for people if you don't like, go off and get your arms and legs blown off by an IED somewhere. That's fine. So I understand why people want to serve. I just don't understand myself personally why you would subject yourself to that environment. If you're a trans person and you know these people are going to fuck with you, why are you going? You know what I mean? Like, I don't never got that. But then again, I'm not a military person. I do come from a military family, actually. My dad is in the Air Force, you know, for years and years. So kind of understand the mentality that goes into it. And I understand, like, that people just want to do what they think is right, you know. Especially when you think your country is under attack. Like, for example, people who joined after 9/11 totally understand. Totally get it. You see, your country under attack, you want to do something to help. That's totally fine. And I don't disparage anybody for joining the military either. There are some people on the left who will like treat soldiers like they're fucking pariahs. And you're just like, say, for example, they'll say shit like, well, you're just like propping up, the system of oppression or whatever. You're enabling the military-industrial complex, blah blah blah. I don't go for that at all. I understand like the way I see it. The actual people in the military, the normal, ordinary soldiers are just doing what they think is the right thing to do. You know, and for the most part, I mean, you do get people that join the military just to get training because they're white supremacists and shit like that. That's definitely a thing. I do think, however, that the deeper you get into it, the military itself has its own culture. Just the same way that police departments have their own culture, right? That culture tends to be generally very right wing, very anti woke. You know what I mean? Very much against gay people, against trans people, stuff like that. Very racist. That is, and we need to acknowledge that. It's true. It's not. I'm not talking shit about the military or anybody who's in the military. I'm trying to identify. Trying to bring light to a problem. It's a problem that far right politics is very much ingrained in military culture. That's just true. And maybe it might be a good thing for more progressives to join the military to try to change that culture from the inside out. So I don't know. I mean, that's just the thing. It's like me personally, I would never do it, but I totally understand why people would do it, would join the military like that. Moving on. In Shoma, quick hello from my side as I cannot stay long. Great job on the Smurf Oompa Loompa War illustration in your weekly live stream. Thank you so much, Raph. Really appreciate it. Uh, Lusa Hedgehog, radical Islam has more in common with the crazy conservatives, if you ask me. Yes, 100%. 100%, man. It's really not a big you know, it's not a big leap from being a conservative Christian to being a conservative Islamist, you know. They essentially believe the exact same shit. It's just, conservative, fundamentalist Islam is in control in many countries in the Middle East, and that's what, if you want to see like what a country controlled by fundamentalist Christians would look like, look at fucking Afghanistan. Seriously. Afghanistan, where they do things like where they blew up these 2,000-year-old Buddhist statues that were like national fucking monuments, right? A World Heritage Site. That things like that should be protected and preserved for future generations so that we have the history of our just human race, protected. They fucking blew it up because they were like, from another religion, right? Because they were like infidels and shit. Dynamited that shit. That was even before like the fucking Afghan war started. You can look that up, right? So that's like, that's what would happen if fundamentalist Christians took over the United States. You'd start seeing them stripping out all of the references to everything that isn't Christian and making laws saying things like, oh yeah, women aren't allowed to have sex before marriage or whatever, and you'll start having purity laws, and you'll start having like, trans people at first will just have their right to, be in bathrooms taken away. And then before you know it, they won't be able to, like, go to school. And they won't be able to teach. And they won't be able to, adopt children and all that stuff. And before, and that's just the slippery slope. One step leads to another. And pretty soon these people are on fucking cattle cars. And, you think I'm being hyperbolic and this is a slippery slope fallacy, but it's not. Look what fucking happened in, Nazi Germany. That's what they did. The Nazis didn't just jump in immediately, cattle cars, gas chambers, overnight. They built up to that shit over a few years. They pushed it to see how far they could go. First they took away, like, benefits. They would say gay people, or sorry, Jewish people who were in the military. They took away all their benefits, stuff like that. Then they started passing laws saying, hey, you can't get married to somebody if they're Jewish, right? Then they moved them all out and they put them into ghettos. And it was just little steps like that, one at a time. And then, within a decade, it's like they're fucking mass murdering people in gas chambers. That's what would happen if conservative Christians, if fundamentalist evangelical Christians ran the United States. That's exactly what would fucking happen. Anybody who doesn't think so is fooling themselves. So, anyway, gonna have to end this pretty soon here. Let's see. One more. Daddy Cat Loves Me. One of the last things my mom ever said to me was that she hoped she lived long enough to vote against Obama. She didn't. Yikes. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. Oh, shit. Yeah, I hope that kind of sounds like there's some history behind that comment, but I won't drag it out. I don't know. I hope everything was cool with you and your mother, Dynacat. So, anyway, this is where we're at so far with our sort of Pumpkin Wizard King. Yeah, not too bad for a 2-hour stream. I might change some of the colors here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this rib cage thing. I might just remove this rib cage, but the original idea, the way I envisioned it, is that there would be like glowing light coming out of his rib cage and shit, but not exactly sure if I want to go that route, I might change this from red to like that sort of fell green, just because green looks more evil to me than red. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, gonna have to end it. I really appreciate you all joining me and stuff every day. You're great, But I have to give my ending speech, So first off, please like and subscribe. I know that's dumb. Everybody tells you to do it, but it actually works. Whenever I say like and subscribe, people actually do it. So please like and subscribe and share it to your friends and all that stuff. And if you like what I do, you can, and you want to support me, you can support me through my Etsy shop. Here is my Etsy shop. I sell prints, I sell little sculptures and things. You know, this is a little fleshy scorpion guy that I made out of latex and paper and doll's eyes and stuff. Kind of like a Halloween prop, you know. This is about 5 inches long. So I sell stuff like this. I sell prints, you know. Here's one of the very more popular prints. This is a Lovecraft character, actually. These are 11 by 17 coffee stain prints. Each one comes out a little unique. So if you like what I do and you want to give me some money for doing it, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop. If you just like my artwork, you can check me out on DeviantArt here. This is my basically gallery where I put up all of the artwork that we do on the channel. You know, here's the latest one that we just did over the last like 6 or 7 streams. The Oompa Loompas versus the Smurfs. So if you want to, you can just download this if you want. You can just right click on it and download it. Feel free, you know. But I might actually make prints of this too and maybe sell them at cons or something like that. So yeah, if you like that, if you like my artwork, please check me out there. If you want to see more of my artwork, I have a webcomic, which is at hawanja.com. Let me just put this down here for you guys. This is fun for the whole stupid family, and it has ninjas and you know, demons and ninjas and all that fun stuff. It's very extremely violent, people getting their heads chopped off, etc., etc. And if you want to see my other YouTube channel, if you want to see me talk about toys and video games and stuff like that, I have another channel called UCD Videos. Mainly, it's all mainly toy unboxings at this point, but I am thinking of doing more in the way of movie reviews and that kind of thing coming in the future. So please check me out on all of my other stuff. Thanks, guys. And once again, you guys are all great. Thank you, Lewis a Hedgehog, for coming every week. Really appreciate it. Thank you, BioSpark. Good to see you. Dynacat, great to have you as always. And Inshoma, you're the man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Elliot Williams, thank you for joining too. Really appreciate everybody. And I will see you all next week at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Adios, everyone.